Imagine flicking through the pages of your favorite comic book series, seeing epic characters and action-packed scenes beautifully imagined in hand-drawn, cel-shaded epicness. Now imagine that story is brought to life before your eyes, and not only that, but you get to step into it and star in the main role. Well, in 2003, Ubisoft made that a reality with the game XIII. Based on a real graphic novel series that's set in a sort of alternate United States just after the JFK assassination, XIII puts you in the shoes of a man with amnesia who's found washed up on a beach, near dead, with multiple bullet holes in him. You quickly discover you're wanted by the FBI for the assassination of this president, but have no recollection of this or even of who you are. What you do realize is that you have an unnatural set of talents centered around combat and espionage, and throughout this 7 or so hour blockbuster, you'll need to make use of every one of them. This is because the FBI aren't the only ones looking to finish you off once and for all. Renegade militias and secret societies are determined to hunt you down and seem to have a vendetta against you for something you did in this past life. Who are you? What did you do in your past life? And how do you fix things? These are all questions that you'll have to answer if you want to see the end of this game. XIII spans 34 levels and 15 plus unique locations that all add refreshing changes that keep you interested throughout. You get to see everything from New York and the Grand Canyon to secret military bases and beyond. The art style really boosts these locations' looks, and at times you'll be questioning how the game looks this good despite being nearly 20 years old. Basing its graphics off the comic book cel-shaded style is, in my opinion, largely the reason for it retaining its looks after all these years. The cutscenes retain this style too, and even adds to it by zooming out and showing the story you play as a comic book that gets flipped through to progress. In addition to this, dispatching enemies in numerous ways will trigger mini comic boxes of their own, showing you in awesome detail the fate of the baddies. All of it is a joy to behold, and feels really unique even with all the games that have released since to compare to. The only games I can really even think of that depict such in-depth comic book aesthetics are Freedom Force and Comic Jumper, which in all honesty may be even more obscure to your average consumer today than XIII. This is one of the reasons why this game has garnered such a cult following, and why many are so desperate for a sequel. Outside of the graphics and cinematics, you'll have a few types of gameplay to entertain you throughout the runtime. One level, you may be blowing your way through entire bases of enemies and tons of fun weapons. The next, you may be stealthily sneaking through a top secret area acting as a spy while taking out enemies and hiding the evidence. There are even sections that allow you to go undercover in a sense, and be led through areas while enemies are none the wiser to your motives. I would say my favorite parts of these have to be the parts where you're allowed to go guns a-blazing and light up the hordes of enemies in spectacular fashion. XIII always creates new set pieces and events to keep these feeling exciting, and many times there will even be other characters in the action with you. I would say the stealth on the other hand is passable but nothing groundbreaking. You have all the basic tools you need, like silent weapons, stealth takedowns, and the ability to carry and move bodies. The AI leaves a little bit to be desired though, as they'll act in a dumb manner occasionally, and instead of reporting you to the alarm or a teammate, they'll walk out in the open for you to kill them. The developers also created some areas in a way that makes you unable to progress without being seen, but instructs you to not be seen at the same time. This forces you to almost speedrun these sections, and to dispose the opposition in a quick enough manner for them not to respond. The enemies many times can't even hear gunfire from one room to another, which kinda defeats the point of stealth altogether. Here's a particularly bad section of stealth from the game.
Alert! The individual reported by HQ has infiltrated the property.
It's not all bad though, as there are truly fun times to be had in these stealth sections too. One of my favorite parts of the game is the ability to pick up numerous objects and use them as weapons to smash over your enemies' heads. Plates, chairs, bottles, and more can all be used in this manner, and seeing the comic book text and boom effect during this is always fun. One thing that could be looked at as a true negative, however, is that the classic version of this game on Steam does not natively have options in it for some modern resolutions. There is a pretty simple fix you can do to change this by editing the text files quickly though, and it doesn't amount to much more of a problem than the main menu being a bit janky at times. I'll leave a quick tutorial on how to do this in the description if anybody needs it. This gets into another topic regarding the game that I wanted to bring up. Outside of the classic version of the game, which is available on PS2, the original Xbox, GameCube, and PC, there is a decently recent remake which is far more updated in terms of modern graphics options. What is interesting is that fans of XIII seemingly hate this remake pretty universally. It seems to have a lot of bugs that weren't present in the original, as well as a pretty noticeable art style and character design change. When the graphic style is one of the reasons that the game stands out so much, and a remake changes this, you can see why the fans would get a bit upset. It seems that there was an update to fix some of these bugs and make the art style a bit closer to the original, but in all honesty, I would recommend just sticking to the classic version that's still available today, as it seems to be the superior experience. In reality, a sequel would be lovely for the game, as it ends in a bit of a cliffhanger, but for people very interested, you can actually look up the graphic novels for the story's resolution, and I think what's on offer here is satisfying enough. Next we can get into the weapons that are on offer here, as using them will make up a large chunk of your time during the game. Throughout 13, you'll have access to around 12 weapons that vary from silent crossbows to assault rifles and rocket launchers. These all feel decently unique and are placed in great locations throughout the missions to ramp things up and the stakes get high. I'd say some of the best weapons were the dual-wield Uzis and the light machine guns, as they pretty much wiped anything you aimed at off the face of the earth. The sniper and crossbow were also pretty fun headshot machines because you'd get a cool little comic animation every time you made one. In addition to this, you could use a few gadgets like the grappling hook that let you climb to secret areas and progress through some of the platforming sections of the game. There's actually a sort of hidden skill system in 13 too that is never mentioned, but slowly upgrades as you progress. At the start, you'll be decently limited in terms of what you can do, and even what weapons you can wield. As the game progresses though, you'll unlock things like being able to hold your breath longer underwater, picking locks faster, and the biggest being dual wielding. These don't end up amounting to much, but they were fun little additions that add to the feeling of progression. Throughout all this gameplay, you'll be treated to the epic soundtrack by Lionel Gage. It's very fast paced for the most part and super percussion heavy. It manages to capture both the suave James Bond feel while adding a bit more down to earth and upbeat feel to it. All in all, I'd say it's worth a listen. Finally, we reach the multiplayer. 13 does have a pretty robust multiplayer with a bunch of different modes like deathmatch and capture the flag, along with ones that are uniquely its own. While it may be hard to find actual people playing, you can always start a new game with your friends or use the solid bots to populate your game. It may seem like a common thing, but many of the games I've covered on this channel essentially have useless multiplayers, as they lack a bot mode to keep the game going. In the end, 13 is a great action-packed FPS that truly deserves more attention. It stands to this day as a unique and creative game that takes the FPS genre in different directions that are a breath of fresh air from current trends. For all these reasons and more, I'm giving 13 an 8 out of 10.
Trying to escape the prison in my mind. I have seen you within my dreams.
Can it, Doug?
Man,